Lorenzen is the CEO and founder of Fifth Avenue Brands, a leading New York City firm providing media relations, strategic planning, and crisis communications, and technology, financial policy as well. And he's with me today to talk about the year that was and what you look forward to next year in kind of this world that you're in. So welcome and explain what were some of the big takeaways from 2024?
Well, it's been a wild year. We've seen a lot of interesting elections all around the world.
Yes.
We've seen a proliferation of AI that is starting to concern a lot of corporate leaders because of the potential that it has to spread misinformation and disinformation. So we have a lot of companies that are scrambling to figure out how they harness AI and how they also protect their reputations in the age of AI. So a lot of technological disruption, a lot of political disruption. And an economy that's seen its ups and downs, right?
Yeah.
With inflation, we still have a growing GDP, lots of mixed signals coming from the economy in terms of where we go in 2025.
Yeah, it's a confusing time. I feel like there's a lot of kind of cross currents moving around.
It is.
So let's talk about the elections. Did that change anything with how you do business?
Well, I think what we're hearing from a lot of clients is that everybody's kind of in a wait and see mode right now to try to figure out what they're footing from a lot of standpoints in terms of where they're investing money, hiring, and all sorts of different things. They're waiting to see where this new administration is going to be starting off in January. And so there's a lot of planning going on. There's also a lot of wait and see as people try to figure out what their next move should be. Like we always see every 4 to 8 years in the US when we're trying to adapt and figure out what a new administration might bring.
What are some of the things that they're waiting to see in terms of what gets resolved or doesn't get resolved, or what would be the answers they're looking for?
Well, if you look at a lot of the headwinds that we've had in the economy in 2024, inflation, higher interest rates, which have made it expensive to borrow money for businesses. I think a lot of leaders are looking to see where those trends are going in 2025. Fed policy will be a big factor that a lot of folks are watching. And then you also have trade and tariffs, which are also something that a lot of leaders are still in that wait and see stance to figure out how they should be addressing, whether there are looming tariffs in 2025 and how that might impact their investments overseas, their impacts here in the US, and supply chain as well. So,
do they talk about geopolitical issues at all?
Yeah, we see a lot of concern about whether you look at Ukraine, whether you look at the Middle East, and then you look at the saber rattling that we have with China over trade and over Taiwan. We're in a period right now where there's a lot of geopolitical uncertainty in different regions of the world. And so there's certainly a lot of concern about the situation in Europe, the situation with NATO, as well as stability in the Middle East, how that impacts energy. And of course, one of our most important trading partners, China, how that relationship is going to play out under a new second Trump administration. It's
going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. I'm getting very, very curious how 2025 goes. Now, you mentioned disinformation, and with social media, you can say just about anything about anything. How do you control that message a little more? Do you have to be proactive more than you did in the past?
The most frightening thing that we're seeing from AI, from a reputation standpoint or from a PR standpoint, is that it's becoming more and more difficult to discern whether the content that you're seeing online is actually authentic content, or is this AI-generated videos or a deep fake video. And so that's one of the biggest risks from a reputation standpoint that companies face going into 2025 is how do we combat or at least have a policy in place to address and respond to misinformation and disinformation that might come from AI-generated content. And so it's never been more important for brands to have a proactive approach to making sure they have a presence in trusted media, whatever those mediums might be for their audience, figuring out what those trusted platforms and mediums are and making sure that you have a presence on those platforms. And of course, also being proactive with communicating when there are those instances of misinformation and content that's inauthentic, so that you can maintain that trust that you have with your stakeholders and with your audience.
I feel like they really need to watch social media like a hawk. And as soon as something comes out they need to like address that immediately.
Mm-hmm.
You know, whether it's, I'm trying to think of, it was the McDonald's thing with the E. coli just recently. They were very quick about, you know, pulling the product and addressing it and kind of containing the situation. And that's really, I think, what you're saying is what companies need to do.
Information, you know, moves faster than it ever has before, and it just makes it more difficult, especially for the comms departments at a lot of these companies, to be able to react quickly and get ahead of some of these trends before they really catch fire on social media.
Yeah. Any other thoughts as you look ahead to 2025? What's kind of on your radar screen?
I think tech regulation is going to be a big issue that, you know, obviously Silicon Valley is going to be watching closely, but a lot of sectors are going to be watching closely. I think that's somewhat of a mixed bag with the new incoming administration figuring out where they're going to fall on certain issues of regulating big tech companies and information. Obviously, trade tensions with China and with other countries around the world as we try to position for what a tariff program might look like under the Trump administration is something certainly everybody's watching. And the economy, you know, we've had a pretty good run, despite the headwinds of inflation, despite the headwinds of higher interest rates over the past 12 months or so. The GDP is still growing strongly. The employment market remains relatively strong. And so figuring out whether or not that continues over 2025 or we start to see some more softening and how the new administration responds to that is going to be something that a lot of CEOs are watching.
It will be interesting regardless. I think we can guarantee that. So thanks so much for coming back.
Always good to be here.